When struggling artist Maya Chen accepts $50,000 to marry a stranger, she thinks it's just a business deal to save her dying father. But her new husband Marcus Kane is hiding a dangerous past and using her as a human shield in a deadly game of cat and mouse with his own brother. K.
As
Dignity Stories Z Family, get ready for a tale full of romance, surprises, and all the feels. You don't want to miss this one. Let's dive in. The wedding ring felt like a shackle around Maya Chen's finger as she stood in the courthouse bathroom staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror. 3 hours ago, she had married a complete stranger. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across her face, making her look older than her 26 years. Outside, rain pelted the windows of the Los Angeles County Courthouse with the kind of violence that matched the storm brewing in her chest. She hadn't even known his real name until the clerk read it aloud. Marcus Kane, not Mark Collins, as. He'd introduced himself when they first met at the downtown diner where she waited tables between art gallery shifts. The man who had approached her with a proposition that seemed too good to be true now felt like a stranger wearing a familiar face. Maya? His voice carried through the bathroom door, rough with an accent she couldn't place. Something European, maybe Eastern? We should go. She splashed cold water on her face, watching the cheap mascara she'd applied that morning run in thin black streams down her cheeks. The wedding dress she'd bought at a thrift store for $30 hung loose on her small frame, the yellowed lace scratching against her collarbone. Nothing about this day felt real. The door creaked as she pushed it open. Marcus stood in the hallway, his hands shoved deep in the pockets of a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He was handsome in a dangerous way, with sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of winter storms. A thin scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, barely visible unless you knew to look for it. "You look pale," he said, studying her with the intensity that had first caught her attention 3 weeks ago. Having second thoughts? Maya forced herself to meet his gaze. A little late for that, don't you think? The corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been a smile if his eyes weren't so cold. I suppose it is. They walked through the courthouse corridors in silence, their footsteps echoing off the marble floors. Maya tried to process what had just happened. She was married to a man who paid her $50,000 to say, "I do," and promised another $150,000 if she could maintain the charade for 6 months. No questions asked, no explanations given. The money sat in her bank account now, transferred that morning as promised. Enough to cover her father's experimental cancer treatment, enough to keep her family's restaurant from closing, enough to buy her father time she couldn't put a price on. "Where exactly are we going?" she asked as they reached the courthouse. Steps. The rain had softened to a steady drizzle, turning the city's streets into a watercolor painting of gray and gold. Marcus pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. "Somewhere safe." Safe from what? Looked at her then. Really looked at her. And for a moment, his carefully constructed mask slipped. She saw something raw and desperate flash across his features before he buried it again. "From the people who think you're dead?" A black sedan pulled up to the curb before she could respond. The driver didn't look at them as Marcus opened the passenger door, his hands settling on the small of her back to guide her inside. His touch burned through the thin fabric of her dress. "What do you mean dead?" Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended as the car pulled into traffic. Marcus was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. The city blurred past the tinted windows, familiar streets becoming foreign territory. Finally, he spoke, without looking at her. "The woman you're pretending to be died in a car accident 6 months ago in Prague. Alina Volkov, my wife." Maya's blood turned to ice. "Your wife?" "My first wife." His jaw tightened. "The marriage certificate we just signed isn't real, Maya. None of this is real. But the people hunting me think Alina is alive, and as long as they believe that, they'll keep looking for her instead of me." The car took a sharp turn, and Maya gripped the door handle. "Who's hunting you?" Marcus finally turned to face her, and she saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. "My brother." The sedan pulled into the parking garage of a downtown high-rise, the concrete walls closing around them like a tomb. Maya realized she had never felt more alone in her life, sitting next to a man whose name she didn't even know, wearing a wedding ring that bound her to a ghost, or something else, Marcus said as the car came to a stop. His voice was barely above a whisper. Alina didn't die in an accident.
Ow.
Maya's world tilted on its axis as the implications hit her.
Ow.
She had married a man running from his own brother, a man whose first wife had been murdered, a man who was now using her as a human shield. The driver opened her door, and cool garage air rushed in, carrying the scent of motor oil and fear. As Maya stepped out of the car, her legs shaky beneath her, she realized the $50,000 sitting in her bank account might be the most expensive mistake of her life. Marcus stood beside her, his eyes scanning the shadows between the concrete pillars like a predator expecting an ambush. "Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Kane," he said, and the name sounded like a death sentence on his lips. The penthouse apartment felt like a gilded cage 30 floors above the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Los Angeles stretching toward the Pacific. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched from the darkness beyond the glass. She stood in what Marcus called the living room, though it looked more like a museum exhibit than a place where people actually lived. Everything was white and chrome and sharp edges that could cut if you got too close. This was Elena's favorite room, Marcus said from behind her, his voice carrying an edge of something that might have been grief or guilt. She used to stand there for hours painting the skyline. Maya turned to find him leaning against the doorframe, still wearing his wedding suit, but with the tie loosened and the top button undone. It made him look younger, more human, almost vulnerable. "You kept her paintings?" He nodded toward the wall behind her. Maya hadn't noticed them before, but now she saw them. 3 canvases, each depicting the same view from the window, but in different seasons, different moods. They were beautiful in a way that made her chest ache. Whoever Alina was, she had talent. "She was good," Maya said softly. "She was everything." Marcus moved to the bar cart in the corner, pouring himself 3 fingers of something amber. "He didn't offer her any, which is why my brother killed her." The words hung in the air like smoke. Maya wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the apartment's warmth. "Why?" Marcus drained half his glass before answering. "Because she found out what our family business really was." "What I really was?" He set the glass down with deliberate precision. "Victor thought she would expose us. He was probably right." "What kind of business?" The look he gave her could have frozen blood. It's the kind that requires wives to be disposable. Maya felt the walls of the apartment pressing closer. She thought about her father and his hospital bed, about the restaurant her family had built from. Nothing about the life she'd left behind for a stranger's money. None of it seemed worth the terror creeping up her spine. "I want out," she said. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "There is no out, Maya. The moment you signed that marriage certificate, you became Alina Volkov in every database. That matters. Victor's people are already looking for you. If you run, they'll find you. If they find you, they'll kill you to get to me. Then why did you do this? Why drag me into your family's war?" "Because I need time," he finished his drink and slammed the empty glass on the bar cart. "Victor thinks Alina is alive, which means he thinks I still have something to lose. So that makes me predictable, controllable. While he's hunting shadows, I can find what I need to destroy him and what happens to me when you do." Marcus moved closer, and Maya caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Fear, maybe, or rage. "If I succeed, you disappear. New identity, new life, anywhere in the world you want to go. The money I promised you is nothing compared to what you'll have when this is over, and if you fail." His silence was answer enough. Maya walked to Elena's paintings, studying the brushstrokes that would never be finished. "Tell me about her. The real Alina, why? Because if I'm going to die pretending to be her, I should know who she was." Marcus was quiet for so long Maya thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "She was a ballet dancer before we met. Injured her knee and had to quit performing. That's when she started painting." He joined her at the paintings, standing close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. She laughed at everything, even at me, which no one had done since I was a child. She made me remember what it felt like to be human. You loved her. I destroyed her. The admission came out raw, broken. Everything I touched turned to ash. I thought if I kept her separate from my work, from my family, she would be safe. But there's no separating from what we are, Maya. There's only pretending until the truth kills everyone you care about. Maya turned to face him, and for the first time since meeting him, she saw past the cold facade to the man underneath. He was broken in ways that might not heal, carrying guilt that had carved trenches in his soul. Is that why you chose me? Because I remind you of her? Marcus reached out as if to touch her face, then caught himself. His hand dropped to his side. I chose you because you have the same eyes. The same stubborn tilt to your chin when you're angry. The same way of seeing beauty in ugly places. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I chose you because when Victor's people inevitably find us, I wanted the last thing I see to remind me of what I lost. The confession hit Maya like a physical blow. She realized she wasn't just a human shield or a convenient doppelganger. She was Marcus's way of torturing himself. A living reminder of his failures played out until death finally claimed them both. Before she could respond, the lights in the apartment flickered once, then went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Marcus grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the windows. Hey, found us, he said, his voice deadly calm. In the distance, Maya could hear the elevator climbing toward them, carrying Death in an expensive suit. Her new husband pushed her toward a door she hadn't noticed before, hidden behind one of Elena's paintings. There's a service elevator. It goes directly to the parking garage. Take the black motorcycle in space 37. The keys are under the seat.
What about you?
Marcus pulled a gun from somewhere inside his jacket, checking the chamber with practiced efficiency. I'm going to buy you time to run. I'm not leaving you. He looked at her with something that might have been surprise, or gratitude, or despair. You don't understand, Maya? These aren't people you negotiate with. They're not people you reason with. They're killers. And they've come for Alina Volkov. The elevator dinged softly in the distance. Then they'll have to go through her husband first, Maya said, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. Marcus stared at her for a long moment, then handed her a second gun. Do you know how to use this? Maya thought about her father's old hunting rifle, about the summers she'd spent at her uncle's farm, learning to shoot tin cans off fence posts. Well enough. The elevator doors opened with a whisper of steel on steel. Marcus Kane smiled for the first time since she'd met him, and it transformed his entire face. Then welcome to the family business, Mrs. Kane. The safe house smelled like old cigarettes and forgotten dreams. Maya sat on the edge of a moth-a-ton couch in what had once been a suburban home in Riverside, watching Marcus's pace like a caged animal. They had escaped the penthouse through a maze of service corridors and back alleys, leaving behind 3 bodies, and any illusion that this was just an elaborate con game. Her hands still trembled from the adrenaline. She had killed a man tonight, put 2 bullets in his chest as he raised his gun toward Marcus's back. The weight of that moment sat heavy in her stomach, a cold stone she couldn't swallow or spit out. You shouldn't have stayed, Marcus said, for the 10th time since they'd arrived. He had a cut above his left eye, where someone had clipped him, with a rifle butt, and his shirt was torn at the shoulder. Blood had dried in dark patches across the white fabric. I already said that. I'm serious, Maya. What you did back there changes everything. They saw your face. Victor knows Alina Volkov is alive, and now he knows she can fight back. Maya looked up from cleaning her gun, a skill she'd never imagined needing. Good. Let him know. Marcus stopped pacing. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. She set the weapon aside and stood to face him. Your brother had my husband killed a woman who looked like me? He sent killers to finish the job tonight? Dommed on being a victim? In someone else's war? Your husband? Marcus's voice was carefully neutral, but something shifted in his expression. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. You know what I mean? Do I? The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to name. Maya turned away, moving to the kitchen, where she'd found a first aid kit under the sink. House belonged to one of Marcus's contacts. Someone who owed him favors and didn't ask questions about blood-stained clothes or middle-of-the-night arrivals. Sit down, she told him, pulling out antiseptic and gauze. Let me look at that cut. Marcus remained standing. Can handle it myself. Sit down. Something in her tone must have convinced him because he lowered himself into one of the mismatched kitchen chairs. Maya moved behind him, gently probing the wound above his eye. This close, she could smell his skin, warm and clean, despite everything they'd been through. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself ready to spring into action, even while sitting still. It's not deep, she said, dabbing at the cut with antiseptic. Marcus hissed but didn't pull away. You'll live. It's debatable. Maya moved around to face him, kneeling between his knees so she could get a better angle on the wound. The position was intimate in a way that made her pulse quicken, but she forced herself to focus on the task at hand. Tell me about Victor, she said, applying a small bandage to his temple. Marcus's jaw tightened. What do you want to know? Everything? If I'm going to help you destroy him, I need to understand who we're fighting. We're not fighting anyone. I'm fighting. You're disappearing as soon as I can arrange it. Maya's hand stilled on his face. No. Maya, no. She pulled back to meet his eyes. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I'm not letting you face this alone. Why? The question came out. Rough, almost broken. Why would you risk your life for someone you've known for 3 weeks? Maya thought about her answer carefully. The truth was complicated, layered with guilt and attraction, and something deeper she wasn't ready to name. Instead, she settled on the simplest version, because Alina can't. Marcus closed his eyes, and for a moment, his mask slipped completely. She saw the grief he carried, the self-hatred that aided him from the inside, when he opened his eyes. Again, they were bright with unshed tears. Victor is everything I was trained to be, but chose not to become, he said quietly. Ruthless, efficient, completely without conscience. Our father raised us to run the family's operations, but I was always too soft, too human. Victor never had that weakness. What kind of operations? Marcus stood abruptly, moving to the window to peer through the blinds at the empty street beyond. Arms dealing, money laundering, human trafficking. We had our fingers in every dirty business that moved through Eastern Europe. Victor expanded into the Americas after our father died. Maya felt sick, and you were part of it. Until Alina. Marcus turned back to her. She made me want to be different. Better. I started making moves to get out, to take down the network from the inside. Victor found out. So he killed her. He made it look like an accident. Car went off a bridge in Prague during a snowstorm. But I knew. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. I knew, and I ran like a coward instead of making him pay. Maya moved. Closer to him, drawn by the pain in his voice. You weren't a coward, you were smart, you survived, I abandoned her. You're honoring her now. Marcus looked at her with something like wonder, as if he couldn't believe she was real. Slowly, carefully, he reached out to cup her face in his hands. How are you not afraid of me? Maya leaned into his touch. I am afraid of you. I'm terrified of what you make me feel. But fear doesn't mean I run. The space between them seemed to contract, drawn tight by invisible threads of attraction and shared danger. Maya could feel his breath on her lips, could see the moment when his careful control began to fracture. This is a mistake, he whispered, but he didn't move away. Probably. Marcus kissed her then, soft and desperate and full of everything he couldn't say. Maya kissed him back with equal fervor, pouring her own tangled emotions into the contact. For a moment, the safe house and Victor and the bodies they'd left behind all faded away. There was only this. Only them. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Maya Marcus started, but she pressed her fingers to his lips. Don't apologize. Don't tell me it was a mistake. Don't make this about Alina, or Victor, or anyone else. Just for tonight, let it be about us. Marcus caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. There might not be a tomorrow for us to regret this. Then we better make tonight count. She led him toward the bedroom at the back of the house, her heart hammering against her ribs. Behind them, Marcus's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He ignored it. The phone buzzed again. Then again, with a curse, Marcus pulled it from his pocket. His face went white as he read the screen. "What is it?" Maya asked. Marcus held up the phone so she could read the message. It was a photo of her father in his hospital bed, unconscious and vulnerable. Below it, a single line of text. "Bring Alina home, or the old man dies. You have 24 hours. Maya's blood turned to ice as the implications hit her. Victor hadn't just found them, he'd found her family. Her dying father was now a pawn in a game she barely understood. "How?" she whispered. Marcus was already moving, grabbing weapons. "From a hidden cache behind the refrigerator? He must have had people watching you before we ever met. Insurance? In case I tried to use you as more than just a body double? We have to go get him. It's a trap, Maya. Victor wants us to come. He's counting on it." Maya felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. When she spoke, her voice was deadly calm. "Then let's give him what he wants." Marcus stopped loading ammunition to stare at her. "What are you saying?" Maya picked up her gun, checking the chamber with movements that were becoming automatic. "I'm saying it's time, Victor." Volkov met the real Elena. The abandoned warehouse in San Pedro reeked of salt and decay, its broken windows offering glimpses of the harbor beyond. Maya crouched behind a shipping container, watching Viktor Volkov pace in the circle of light cast by industrial lamps. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, with the same sharp features as Marcus, but none of the warmth. Even from a distance, she could see the coldness in his pale eyes, the casual way he held violence like other people held car keys. Her father sat tied to a chair in the center of the space, his hospital gown stark white against the warehouse's grimy concrete floor. He was conscious but weak, his head lolling forward as if the effort of staying upright was too much. Seeing him like that, so fragile and helpless, made something murderous unfurl in Maya's chest. 6 men, Marcus whispered from his position. Behind another container, 20 feet away. 2 on the catwalks, 2 at the main entrance, 2 roaming patrol. Victor makes 7. Maya adjusted her grip on the rifle they'd taken from the safe house. What about the explosives? Marcus's plan was insane, but it was their only chance. They'd wired the warehouse with enough C4 to level half the block, insurance in case everything went wrong. The detonator sat heavy in Maya's jacket pocket, a last resort that would take all of them down together. In position, remember we get your father out first? Everything else is secondary. Maya nodded, though part of her wanted to put a bullet through Victor's skull and deal with the consequences later. The rational part of her mind knew Marcus was right, but rationality was harder to hold on to when the person you loved most in the world was being used as bait. A black sedan pulled up to the warehouse entrance, its headlights cutting through the evening fog. Maya's breath caught as she watched Marcus emerge from the passenger seat, hands raised to show he was unarmed. They'd agreed he would go in first, draw Victor's attention while she flanked from the side. It was supposed to be simple. Nothing about this felt simple, Marcus. Victor's voice echoed through the warehouse, carrying genuine pleasure. "My baby brother finally comes home. He brought Alina with him, just like I asked." Maya moved closer, using the containers as cover. Victor's men were good, but they were focused on Marcus. They didn't see her sliding through the shadows. Like smoke. "Let the old man go, Victor. This is between us." "Oh, but it's not." Victor walked over to Maya's father, running his fingers through the older man's gray hair with mock tenderness. "You see, when you ran away after Elena's unfortunate accident, I thought you'd learned your lesson. I thought you'd stay hidden, like a good boy. But then you had to go and play dress-up with this pretty little waitress." Maya was close enough now to see the resemblance between the brothers more clearly. They had the same bone structure, the same predatory grace. But where Marcus carried his darkness like a burden, Victor wore it like jewelry. "She's not Alina," Marcus said carefully. Victor laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "Of course, she's not. Elena's been dead for months, rotting in a Prague cemetery. But this little dove looks enough like her to make you stupid, to make you sloppy. Maya raised her rifle, lining up a shot on Victor's head. One bullet would end this. One squeeze of the trigger and her father would be safe. Marcus would be free. She could go back to her normal life of struggling to pay bills and pretending she didn't need anyone. But as her finger tightened on the trigger, Victor moved. Not away from her scope, but closer to her father. Close enough that any shot she took risked hitting the wrong target. The thing is, Victor continued, I don't actually care about Elena. Never did. She was always just a means to an end. Way to keep you in line when you started getting ideas about leaving the family business. Marcus went very still. I'm saying Elena Volkov was a very good actress. My theater program, did you know that? Recruited her myself when I realized you were getting soft. Amazing what people will do for the right amount of money. Maya felt the world tilt beneath. Her feet, through her rifle scope, she could see Marcus's face go white with shock and rage. You're lying, Maya. Did you ever wonder why a world-class ballet dancer would give up her career for a gangster? Why she always seemed to know exactly what to say to make you feel human again. Victor's smile was razor-sharp. She was very good at her job. Right up until she decided she actually loved you and tried to back out of our arrangement. The warehouse fell silent, except for the distant sound of waves against the harbor. Maya watched Marcus process the revelation, saw the moment when 20 years of guilt and self-hatred crystallized into something harder and more dangerous. So you killed her for real. I killed her for betraying me. For choosing you over the family. For forgetting that she was just an employee. Victor pulled a gun from his jacket, pressing it against her father's temple. Maya's heart stopped. But enough about ancient history. Let's talk about your new Elena. Maya Chen, 26, works at Chen's Garden on Sunset Boulevard. Father dying of cancer, family restaurant 3 months behind on payments. Sound familiar?
Wow.
Maya realized with crystal clarity that she had been played from the very beginning. Not just by Marcus, but by Victor. The meeting at the diner, the marriage proposal, even her father's sudden turn for the worse. All of it orchestrated to bring her to this moment. The experimental treatment he's been receiving, Victor continued conversationally, courtesy of Volkov Industries. Amazing what modern medicine can do when money is no object. It's also amazing how quickly it can be withdrawn, you son of a bitch, Maya whispered, but her voice carried in the warehouse acoustics. Victor's head snapped toward her hiding spot, his gun swinging away from her father. There she is, the new Elena Volkov, come to save her husband. How romantic. Maya stepped out from behind the container, rifle trained on Victor's chest. Around the warehouse, she could hear his men repositioning. But she kept her focus on the man who had destroyed so many lives for the sake of control. Let my father go. Oh, I don't think so. Maya, you've become very important to my business interests. Not because you look like Elena, but because Marcus loves you. Really loves you. Not just the idea of you. And men in love make such wonderfully predictable mistakes. Maya felt Marcus's eyes on her, but she didn't dare look. Away from Victor. What do you want? Want my brother back where he belongs. I want him to stop playing hero and remember that some families don't have happy endings. Victor's smile was all teeth. And I want you to pull that trigger. What? Shoot Marcus, right now. Put a bullet in his heart, and I'll let your father live. I'll even throw in enough money to keep your restaurant open for the next decade. All you have to do is prove that love is just another weakness. Maya's hands began to shake. Around the warehouse, Victor's men had their weapons trained. On Marcus, ready to gun him down the moment she made the wrong choice. Don't do it, Maya, Marcus said quietly. Whatever happens, don't give him what he wants. Tick-tock, Victor sang. Your father doesn't have all night. The cancer treatments I've been giving him have some unfortunate side effects when withdrawn. Suddenly his heart could give out any moment. Maya looked at her father, slumped in the chair and fighting for each breath. Then she looked at Marcus, standing in the center of the warehouse like a man ready to die. Finally, she looked at Victor, who was watching her internal struggle with the fascination of a child burning ants with a magnifying glass. She made her choice. Maya swung her rifle toward Marcus's finger on the trigger. Victor's laugh echoed. Through the warehouse, as Marcus closed his eyes, waiting for the bullet that would end his life. Instead, Maya spun back toward Victor, using the moment of his distraction to put 2 rounds center mass. As Victor fell, his finger spasmed on his own trigger, sending a wild shot into the warehouse ceiling. Chaos erupted. Victor's men opened fire from their positions, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness like deadly fireworks. Maya dove for cover as bullets sparked off the shipping containers around her. But Victor wasn't dead. Wounded and enraged, he struggled to his feet and pressed his gun against her father's head. "You think you're clever?" He screamed over the gunfire. "You think love conquers all? Watch your father die, and then we'll see how much your precious Marcus means to you." Maya saw Marcus moving through the smoke and shadows, cutting down Victor's men with ruthless efficiency, but he was too far away. There wasn't enough time. Maya pulled the detonator from her pocket. "Victor," she called out. "Look at me." He turned, blood streaming from his chest wounds, gun still pressed against her father's temple. "If he dies," Maya said, holding up the detonator, "we all die. Right here, right now. Your choice." Victor's eyes widened as he realized what she was holding. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't kill your own father." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Try me." The standoff stretched between them, 2 people willing to destroy everything rather than lose what mattered most. In that moment, Maya understood why. Marcus had run after Elena's death. Some choices broke you regardless of which option you picked. Victor's finger tightened on the trigger. Maya's thumb hovered over the detonator button. Time stopped, balanced on the edge of a knife, waiting to see which way it would fall. The bullet meant for her father's head went wide as Marcus's knife found Victor's throat. Maya didn't see him move. One moment Victor was standing over her father with murder in his eyes. The next he was collapsing in a spreading pool of blood, Marcus behind him like an avenging ghost. The detonator fell from Maya's nerveless fingers, clattering across the concrete floor. "It's over," Marcus said, but his voice sounded hollow, emptied of everything that had once made him human. Maya ran to her father, cutting the ropes that bound him with shaking hands. He was breathing alive, but his pulse was weak and thready. The warehouse had fallen silent, except for their ragged breathing and the distant sound of sirens growing closer. "We need to get him to a hospital," Maya said. Marcus nodded, but he didn't move from where he stood over Victor's body. Blood stained his shirt, his hands, his face. Some of it was his own, but most belonged to other people. The cost of survival. Written in red across his skin. Marcus. He looked up at her, and Maya's heart broke at what she saw in his eyes. The man who had kissed her with such desperate tenderness was gone, replaced by the killer he'd been trained to be, the brother he'd never wanted to become. "I need to clean this up," he said mechanically. "The police can't find us here. Too many questions. The police are already coming. I can hear the sirens. Then we run, and we keep running until Victor's people forget about us, or we're dead. There's no other way." Maya helped her father to his feet, supporting his weight as they moved toward the warehouse exit. But she stopped before they reached the door, turning back to look at Marcus. "There is another way." Marcus was moving through the warehouse, removing evidence, preparing to disappear into whatever shadows would hide them. He'd done this before, Maya realized.
What?
The cleanup, the escape, the endless cycle of violence and flight. It was all he knew. "Maya, we need to go now." "No." She settled her father against a shipping container and walked back to Marcus. "You said Victor's people think Elena is alive? That she can expose the family's operations?" So, Maya pulled out her phone, scrolling to the video recording function. "So let's give them Elena one last time." Marcus stared at her, his understanding dawned. "Maya, you can't. If you testify against the Volkov organization, you'll have targets on your back for the rest of your life." "I already do." She hit record, then looked directly into the camera. "My name is Elena Volkov. I have evidence. That will bring down one of the largest criminal organizations operating between Eastern Europe and the Americas." The sirens were getting closer. Red and blue lights flickered through the broken warehouse windows, painting the walls in emergency colors. Victor kept records, Maya continued, speaking to the camera, but looking at Marcus. Financial records. Shipping manifests, names and locations of everyone who ever worked for him. He was paranoid about his own people betraying him, so he documented everything. Marcus moved closer, understanding what she was doing. The safe in his office. Victor always kept insurance files. Maya nodded, still recording. I know where they are. I know how to access them. I'm willing to trade that information for immunity and witness protection for myself and my family. She stopped recording and immediately uploaded the video to every social media platform she could think of, then sent copies to the FBI field office in Los Angeles and the district attorney's office. Within minutes, Alina Volkov's final testimony would be spreading across the internet, impossible to contain or suppress. There, Maya said, slipping the phone back into her pocket. Now Victor's people don't need to hunt Alina anymore. She's already given them everything she knows. Marcus stared at her with something that might have been awe or terror. You just made yourself the most wanted woman in America. No, I made Alina Volkov the key witness in the biggest organized crime case in decades. Maya Chen is just a waitress from Los Angeles who got caught up in something she didn't understand. The warehouse doors burst open as SWAT teams flooded in, shouting commands and sweeping the space with tactical lights. Maya raised her hands, keeping her movements slow and deliberate. Alina Volkov, she called out, using the name that had brought her nothing but pain and fear. I'm the one who called this in. I want to make a deal. No. The next few hours blurred together in a haze of interrogation rooms and federal agents. Maya told them everything she knew, which was both more and less than they expected. She gave them Victor's location, the warehouse, the bodies they would find, as she told them about the safe in Victor's office and the insurance files he kept on everyone who had ever crossed him. What she didn't tell them was that Marcus Kane had died in the warehouse along with Victor. As far as the FBI knew, Alina's mysterious husband had been another victim of the Volkov organization's internal war. The man who walked out of that warehouse was someone else entirely, someone with new papers and a new identity, someone who could disappear into witness protection and never be found. 6 months later, Maya stood in a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, reading about the Volkov trial in the newspaper. 347 arrests across 12 countries. Assets worth over $2 billion seized. Of an international criminal organization in FBI history, Alina Volkov had kept her word. Maya Chen had kept her father alive. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed, and Maya looked up to see a man with different colored hair and new scars. On his hands, he was thinner than she remembered, wearing clothes that didn't quite fit and carrying himself like someone still learning how to be invisible. Ms. Morrison said, using the name on her new identification. I believe you're expecting me. Maya smiled, the first real smile she'd worn since the warehouse. Mr. Collins, right on time. They found a corner table away from the other customers. 2 people who had died and been reborn in the space between one identity and another. Maya's father was in remission, living quietly in a small town in Montana with enough money to never worry about medical bills again. Her family's restaurant had been sold to pay for new lives they could never explain to anyone who had known them before. Any regrets? Marcus asked, stirring sugar into coffee he probably wouldn't drink. Maya considered the question seriously. She thought about the gallery she'd never owned, the art career she'd abandoned, the simple life she'd given up for $50,000, and the promise of easy money. Alina never got to finish her paintings, she said finally. Marcus nodded, understanding what she meant. There's a small art studio in the apartment upstairs. North-facing windows, good light. The landlord says the previous tenant left some supplies behind. You found an apartment already? I found our apartment. If you want it, if you want to try building something real this time. Maya reached across the table to take his hand. His fingers were warm and steady, no longer carrying the weight of his brother's sins. What would we call it? This thing we're building? Marcus smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, it reached his eyes. How about marriage? Laughed, the sound bright and free in the quiet coffee shop. Outside, Portland rain drummed against the windows with the same rhythm that had brought them together in another life. In another city, when they were different people carrying different names, she looked down at the simple gold band on her finger, the one piece of their old lives they had been allowed to keep. It no longer felt like a shackle or a prop in someone else's performance. It felt like a promise. "Mrs. Collins," she said, testing the name on her tongue. "I like the sound of that." Marcus brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to the ring that bound them together, until death do us part, or witness protection. Or witness protection. They sat in comfortable silence, two ghosts learning how to haunt the world as living people. Somewhere in the distance, Maya could hear the sound of children playing, of normal people, living normal lives full of ordinary problems and everyday miracles. For the first time in months, the future felt possible. Asterisk comment below. Do you think Maya made the right choice? What would you do for $50,000? Asterisk, don't miss a single episode. Subscribe and hit the bell for notifications when each new part drops. If you're already invested in Maya and Marcus's story, share with someone who loves intense romance stories. The end.